The following is a production of Shark Flight Media.
From mechs to mages or agents to argonauts, this is the world of Chris Kennedy Publishing. This is the CKP Future Books Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to the April podcast of Future Books, where we explore the books coming from CKP Publishing, Chris Kennedy Publishing, science fiction and fantasy. We have a great month in the month of April, and as always, our publisher and editor, Chris Kennedy, is with us. We have 4 books this month coming out, and they are all above average. They are all from Lake Wobegon. So
they're all winners, and I don't just say that because 2 of them are mine.
But anyway, so we're super happy to have Chris here, and we're going to jump right in this month and talk about the first book coming out. Oh, I guess I ought to welcome Chris to the podcast.
Why, thanks. I've already jumped in, so if anyone doesn't know my voice by now, I'd be surprised if this was their first time listening. So,
absolutely.
But if they are, hi, I'm Chris.
So on April 4th, we have our first book of the month coming out, and this book is by Fred Hughes, one of our favorite authors. He has a series, the Prince of Brittania series, and this book is in the second chapter of that series. The first all followed Hazard King, up until something happens to him, which I won't tell you because it would be a spoiler. And the second chapter is entitled The Heroes of Brittania, and it follows Hazard's children as they start to take on the responsibilities that their father had. And this book is book 3 in that series, and it's called Hero's Destiny. I've had the good fortune to be able to read this book, and it's every bit as good as the rest of the series. I'm really excited about it. Do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about it, Chris?
Sure, absolutely. This is the third book in the second series, like you said, and I would say that it involves more his proteges than his children at this point, because his kids are kind of young. Although his wife figures quite centrally in it as well. There are new things happening in the galaxy that are driving events, which are going to make things much more challenging. And oh, by the way, the Senate's back in session, and they're a bunch of jerks. So there is much badness in here. It's a great story, and it's setting up a lot of things that are coming, including something big that happens at the end. And I can't say any more than that.
Yeah, well, I am certainly happy to see the series continue. Like you said, all of the previous books have been heavily involved with the military aspects and the fighting. This here explores a lot more of the personal interaction between the characters, and has a lot of political intrigue. And I can certainly see how this is setting up the future, and we get to see the effects of setting up a whole new kingdom or a whole new political organization away from the Empire of Brittania, which I have found fascinating.
Yeah, and you get to see a lot of Raven, who's always been kind of a neat character, and I think Raven is ultimately going to get her own book somewhere down the way. And speaking of Fred and books that are coming, I'm happy to announce, I don't know that we've ever really talked about it, but somewhere toward the end of this year, Fred Hughes and I are going to start a series together, which are going to be The Adventures of Jack and Jill.
Okay. And we're going to leave it at, you're going to leave it at that?
Jack being a space fighter pilot, hotshot, kind of Top Gunny sort of dude. And Jill is the sarcastic AI that lives in his head.
Oh, man. This sounds really good. I can't wait to see that. And you say that is that going to be later this year?
Yeah, that'll be later this year. We've talked about it. We've talked a little bit about setting it up. Fred and I are probably going to outline it a little bit at LibertyCon. So it's something both of us are really looking forward to. And it will go into my writing thing later, probably toward the end of the year. But it's definitely a 2025 project. I'm finishing up the Kingdom Lost trilogy right now. I suspect, looking forward and seeing how this is going to end, that there will probably be more books in this series. I haven't decided whether to, whether I want to do like a 4, 5, 6 on this, as my next big project, or maybe a 6, 7, 8 in Symbiote Wars. So probably be looking to have the readers tell me which one do they want more. But there's also going to be a couple 4 Horsemen books that I need to write this year, as well as this new series with Fred. So got a lot on my plate, but that's the way to do it.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to it. I can't think of 2 authors I would rather be excited about a book that's forthcoming. So this should be really good, and I think that's a great concept for a new series.
I'm looking forward to it. It's super fun. I just want to know who gets to write the sarcastic AI, because we're both sarcastic, and we're going to have to share her, I think.
Yeah, my money's on you.
Well, fine. I mean, he can write the fighter pilot, and I'll do the AI. That's kind of like
you and I can
with,
marry with the
yep.
tanks and the aircraft.
That's exactly where I was going. He did the fighter stuff, and I did the tanks, and that worked out pretty good. So,
well, you left
looking forward to it.
You left me a great segue. You were saying that you would be finishing up at least this part of the Kingdom Lost series, and on April 11th, we've got Reversal, which is book 2 of Kingdom Lost. Mm-hmm. This is going to follow Duke Valente after the coup of the Star Kingdom of Naratia, where the king took his 4 children, put them in the hands of 4 really trusted advisors, and told them,
cast them into the wind.
Cast them into the wind. Put them where they can never be found. And now the children are coming back together to get their birthright. So tell us a little more about what's going on and where we're going with this.
Absolutely. In the first one, they have all found each other or know where each other is. If I don't want to spoil it any more than that, but now the effort comes to how are we going to resecure our birthright while this war is going on, and obviously. If they announce themselves, the kingdom will fall into civil war, and then they'll lose the war with the Algarians, and they'll end up with no throne to sit on, once the Algarians kill everybody. So they have to win the war first. But how can, a group of just a few mercenary ships win a war that's gone on for over 16 years? So they got to figure that out, and they got to win the war and then kill Valente, and in order to get their birthright. That's an awful lot to do, though. So we shall see.
Yep. And then on April the 18th, probably one of my 3 favorite authors at CKP. John Siers finishes about a 4 to 5 year long story.
It's actually longer, because he had the first 5 books out for a while before I got a hold of them. Actually, he had books number 1, 2, 3, and 5 out. The publisher that he had him with hadn't figured out how to get number 4 out, so it was a mess, and the covers were all over the place, and happily I got hold of it and brought some method to the madness. So some of the initial books have been out there for a while, but we've got it taken care of.
Well,
sorry.
No.
I interrupted.
No, only thing I was going to say is after speaking with John several times over the years as these books have come out, this was originally started as a trilogy, and after book 12, he's finishing the original trilogy. So,
well, the funny thing is, book 12 was the third book of the trilogy.
Yep.
Because he had written the first 2 books in this, and then he realized that the jump from number 2 to number 3 was too far. So he filled in the trilogy with number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Yeah, he and I, after he wrote the first book, that was early on in our your and my friendship, and I had gotten his phone number from you, and I called him and told him how much I was loving his books. But between even book 1 and book 2, he took such a huge jump in time. I said, "You're going to run out of time before you run out of stories." And, and he took that to heart. But these books are some of my favorite. I would recommend this to any CKP reader, especially if you're of a certain age. These remind me so much of some of the early Heinlein novels, some of the early Jerry Pournelle and Larry Niven novels. They have humor, they have strategy, they have space, grand space opera, and John is an excellent writer, and I'm looking forward to what happens to the Lunar Free State after this book. 12 books, it's 2 cups of coffee, people. Go buy 2 cups. Just don't get 2 cups of coffee. Buy all these books. You will not regret it.
Absolutely. This is a great series. And it's one I always look forward to reading, when I get hold of the manuscripts. And this one is no different. This is, like you said, the end of the first trilogy. He has plenty more planned after this, but this is the end of the first arc, and we finally get to see the battle that has been brewing for the last I don't know, 6 or 8 books. It's been coming a long time, and the fight is on. And I think anybody that's read any of this series knows what I'm talking about, and has been looking forward to this for a long time. Well, you get your wish, and it is every bit as good as you would hope. Personally, I think that this book is the best book out of the 12-book series.
I would say this one or the very first one. Both of them were tremendously good, and it's very much like those movies when we were kids, where someone who was exceptional continuously being bullied in school, and they just pretty much ignore it, and then they finally have enough and pick up the tray and give the
whack them over the head.
Yep, absolutely. That's this book. If you want a book that has lots of action and gives you a feeling of satisfaction at the end, this is the one you want to read.
Yep, absolutely. This is the payoff. Absolutely.
And for those of you that are listening, the second half of the podcast, we will be having a further interview with John, letting him talk about, how he put this book together and the things that he enjoys about it. So please stay for the second half. I think you're going to enjoy that.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! And then on April 25th, we're going to wind up the month with Recon by Fire. And this is another science fiction novel. It's written by our publisher and editor, Chris Kennedy. And it's book 4 in his Symbiote War series. And we get to follow Will Johnson and the Sutton siblings as they continue to fight the Cowley. And this time, General Sutton gives them an additional force to fight with, and for the first time, the siblings and Will are not in charge. They're part of the group that's going to go fight. So we're going to be interested to see how this works out. Usually in these situations, it doesn't work out well.
Well, you wouldn't be wrong. And it's one of those things. Be careful what you ask for. You just may get it. They were kind of happy, run things themselves, but they needed more forces. You get more forces, but then you need somebody to be in charge of those forces, and they're all, fairly junior people. So it comes with an admiral, and the admiral has a history, and he also has a history with Will. So anyway, we'll have to see how it works out. But they tried to get an edge in the last book by taking over some of the aliens' ships. Didn't kind of work out as well as they hoped. So here they go. They have an opportunity to kind of push back into enemy territory, and if they can maybe get a little bit more time to build up the human fleet. Because if the Collies find them now, they're done. They don't have a big enough fleet to stop them, and they will lose. But if they can take away some of their refueling stops, then they can push them back and get some breathing room. So that's what they're hoping for, and here we go.
Well, I'm looking forward to the entire month. Like I said, John's going to be on in the second half of the podcast and talk about the ending of this chapter of the Lunar Free States, and I hope everybody that's listening enjoys that. As it's April, we're starting to get into convention season. Ordinarily, that's from April, May till August, September, something like that. And, CKP and its authors are usually at many of the Southern conventions. So I'm going to let Chris talk some about the convention season and where you can meet some of your authors, or even meet Chris and talk to him about what you'd love to see coming from CKP in the future. Chris, how does the summer look?
Sure. It's certainly busy for the CKP authors. We've already been out and about to a number of different events. As a matter of fact, last weekend I was at Mid-South Con, which is in Memphis, and had a great time. We had probably about 10 CKP authors there. It was great seeing all of them, great seeing the readers. I have another event myself, about the time that everybody's listening to this, on April 5th in Delaware, which hopefully folks will come out. It's, a one-day event, but it's great. It's in Woodbridge, Delaware. And then I will be going to LibertyCon in June. That will be the last one for me this summer. I've already been to 3 or 4 now. So, I've gotten most of mine out of the way, but there are plenty of other ones going on the rest of the year. Take an opportunity to get out and see some of the CKP authors and talk with them and get a signed copy of the books. There'll be lots of people at DragonCon as well as LibertyCon, and have a good time while you're doing it.
Yeah, and I don't think we can say enough about LibertyCon, but it's hard to get into. They are limited by statute how many people can come to their event. But if you have an opportunity, if you find a ticket, you'll see many of your favorite authors, not just from CKP, but from science fiction, period. It's probably one of the best run, most family-friendly conventions in the country.
Oh, absolutely. It's I've heard it called a family reunion with people you actually like. And I think that is spot on. It's a lot of the same people are there every year, so it's your family. But they're actually all great folks, and you look forward to seeing them every year. If you didn't get a ticket already, get on the waiting list, because there's always some people that aren't able to make it at the very end, and you may get a call and, come on out. They're probably, I think, about 75% of the CKP authors will be there. There's always a ton of us there, and you can get, even if you bring your favorite anthology, you'll get most of the authors to sign it.
Yeah, I remember the last time that I was able to go, I probably spent more time sitting around tables with authors, just listening to them talk about what was coming up and what they were working on, and working out plot problems and stuff, at a table themselves, than I did in the panels. And enjoyed it more than many conventions where I went to, the preset panels. There's always something going on there that's fun.
Absolutely. And there'll be a, CKP year ahead brief, which is kind of like the Bain Traveling Roadshow, including the giving of gifts from us to you. There'll also be a Four Horsemen panel where we'll talk about what should be the final series going on by then. So lots of great stuff coming, and love to see everybody out there.
Great. And Chris, is there anything else that you need to talk about or want to talk about this month before we wrap it up?
No, I think I'm good. Looking forward to seeing people, LibertyCon. Hopefully if they get out to the Festival of the Word in Delaware. That's a new thing that's going on. So, everybody that's close, hopefully they'll get a chance to support it. The funny thing there is that for those of you that know Chris Maddox, the CKP author, he's written a couple books with the Devil's Choir. That's actually his high school that it's going to be held at. So he'll be there as well.
That'd be great. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. I know every minute you spend here doing the podcast every month is a minute you're not writing, so we're going to let you get back to the keyboard. Thank you so much for being with us this month, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's always great talking to you.
All right, and we'll talk to you next month.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to the first half of the podcast and learning what's coming out in the month of April. We have the very special pleasure this month to talk to John Siers, who is the author of the Lunar Free State series, probably my second favorite series that CKP does after the Four Horsemen universe books. He is a tremendously nice guy. His books are consistently excellent. If you're a fan of Robert Heinlein, then you will love John Siers. His writing style is very much in the Heinlein vein, and they're great popcorn books. They're books you can sit down with a bowl of popcorn and lose 2 hours, and it feels like 15 minutes. It's a movie in your head. So help me welcome John Siers. John, thank you for coming on the podcast again this month.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Randall. It's been a minute.
It has,
and but you were with me from the beginning, so.
Well, from the very beginning, actually, because I was the person Chris sent your manuscript to read, and I called him. Very seldom do I call him after I read a slush submission, but I actually called him on the phone and said, Get him now. This is one of the best books that you've ever sent me. This is a must print book.
Well, I appreciate that, and as I kind of humbled by this, and I keep being humble when people mention Robert Heinlein connection with me, and I keep thinking maybe it's because since I could read, I've read everything that Heinlein ever wrote.
Well, and that's the way I am.
Yeah, so that's kind of what got me going on this. But yeah, we've been at this for a while now, and when I first started with Chris, we put the first 5 books out, and Wow! Now we're about to launch number 12
in the trilogy.
Shadow on the Moon. Yeah, in the trilogy. Yeah. Well, let me tell the little story about that. This goes to very recently, last weekend, in fact, at Mid-South Con. Chris held his usual CKP the year ahead session. He was a guest of honor at Mid-South Con this year. And believe it or not, it was the first time I actually met him face to face.
That's what I found super interesting.
12 of my books so far, and I've been on a podcast with him. I've been on a Zoom call with him once with a whole bunch of other people. But this is the first time I actually said, "Hey, Chris Kennedy, hey, I'm John Siers, hi," and we actually ran into each other in the lobby of the hotel when I was just moving in my stuff. But anyway, at that session, we were discussing the fact that Chris doesn't want to publish any one-book wonders. And so if you approach Chris with a story today, it can be the best story in the world.
But you better have two more to follow it.
Yeah, he's going to tell you, I want a trilogy, right? Well, the fact is, the Lunar Free State was originally going to be a trilogy. And I wrote all three of the books before I ever published any of them. And Moon and Beyond was the first. Someday the Stars was the second. And then I wrote a third book that I put aside and decided not to publish right away because it was too far into the future. And it was actually 2 generations into the future. The characters in that third book were the grandchildren of the characters in the first 2. So I said, I need to write some stuff in between. And so we went on, we wrote Valkyrie's daughter, and that got us into the second generation of characters. And then we pushed on into In the Service of Luna, where we actually met the first character of the third generation, which was Lorna Greenwood II. And then at that point, I got hooked up with Chris, and you guys were telling me, hey, kind of slow down a little. We got a lot of story to tell here. And I said, at that time, you didn't realize I was working toward that third unpublished novel. And I did slow down. We told that story. But book 12, which is about to come out, Shadow on the Moon, is actually that third novel. The original trilogy is now completed with 12 books. So, that's...
And you did something unusual in that book that I want to applaud you for. So throughout all 12 books, we followed the family of Lorna Greenwood, throughout every book. And most authors would have finished the book, the series, or the chapter that we're in by letting this generation of the Greenwoods be the head of the government, tying a knot on the story. It started with after the first book, the original Lorna Greenwood being the head of the government, and then ending it with that. And that would have been the easy way out, but you didn't take that way. And I'm not going to spoil, how she manipulates that to happen. But I found that to be refreshing and something that most authors wouldn't have done, because it would have been so easy just to tie a knot in the story by finishing how you began.
Well, and there is a little secret behind that, is that the story has to continue. The dynasty has to continue. So she has something else to do, something else other than running the government. So, and there's a kind of a hint at the very end, but I won't give you any spoilers on that either. So, I should mention one thing, by the way. With book 11, Disloyal Opposition, which of course has been out since January.
Yeah, I was not happy with you with that book. It was very well written. It was a great story, but
I left you with a cliffhanger, didn't I? And that's something I swear I was never going to do, except that in this case, I knew that the next book was right behind it. I knew it was not going to take me that long to get the next book out.
Yeah, it wasn't going to be a year before we had a resolution.
Right.
Both of the books are fabulous, but Shadow of the Moon it's worth reading the 12 books or the 11 books before it to get to. There is nothing worse than spending years reading a series of books and then the end be disappointed.
Yeah, well, or having the author cut you off before the series is finished, or just walk away and There's a reason why I'm not really happy with George R.R. Martin. Okay.
Well, there you join a legion of people who feel the same way.
I mean, we're readers, not television viewers, right? Yeah, that's the whole thing. But yeah, and now since we're talking about this kind of being the end of this first arc of the Lunar Free State. I've had people say, hey, is the Lunar Free State finished? No, it is not finished. No. We are going to go on I've created a universe where there are so many opportunities to go on. Right now, I'm thinking of the next novel will focus more on Xanadu because we've got a colony that we're building over there. And we've got these wonderful critters known as the kitties that people keep asking me, are we going to see more of the kitties?
People for some reason love intelligent cats.
Yeah, well, and while I'm a cat lover myself, I have two felines that have been hanging around here for quite a few years, and my writing companions, if you will. And I finally said, okay, I gotta write the intelligent cats, and the idea of that they would be telepathic and that they might actually be more intelligent than we are. Just this idea that they didn't develop advanced technology because they didn't need it.
Yeah, they were the apex predators just in and of themselves. They didn't need anything else.
Well equipped, to be at the top of the food chain. So no problem. But they're going to be there for a while, and I'm working on a novel right now that will feature them and what's going on Xanadu. And I've seemed to have developed a habit of running two plots at the same time. And that's probably going to happen again here. And there's something happening on Xanadu and something happening elsewhere, and possibly Tatana. I don't know. But we're going to keep that going. So the Lunar Free State will continue. And then I've also had a short discussion with Chris about the possibility of, should I let other writers into that universe?
Well, you know my opinion on that. You and I have talked about that before. I think it would be a great idea.
And I think so too. But it's
got to be the right writer.
And it involves a lot of work on my part, because first I've got to sit down. I got to write the Bible for the Lunar Free State. That canon that all new writers would have to adhere to before they can write it.
Mm-hmm. And then you've also got to delineate just a specific area for them to write in. You don't want them just writing all over your entire universe.
Right. And you don't want them using any of the main characters. They basically got to, but there are so many characters. I started building a database, and I think I got it as far as Valkyrie's daughter, and I've already got over 100 named characters. And, I've got to go through that, but there's plenty of characters available for them to use. It's just that you don't want them diverting any of your main characters from the path that I have chosen for them, right?
Well, we need one of the kiddies to, the two things I'd love to see is, one is we need a kiddie who's in the military who gets to a senior non-commissioned officer's position who has a wicked sense of humor. I think that would be hilarious to explore. And the other is the first time the kiddies go to Tashiana, how they get along with each other, and how that relationship develops.
Yeah, well, this is all stuff for the future, and I'm working at that. There's another little interesting thing that the kiddies have now kind of moved themselves off of their little continent, and they've started to come into the colony on the other continent. So how do we treat that? I mean, they own the planet. They're the native race of the planet. So we can't say, okay, well, we're going to decide whether you can be lunar citizens or not. We're almost in a position of how do we treat them as if they were the Native Americans on this this continent when the Europeans were at? What would be the right way to do that instead of the way we actually did it? And so we have to take that into account. We do have them starting to get into the military, and they're integrated into the militia. But hey, and the Marines have figured some good uses for them. But yeah, they haven't left the planet yet.
Yeah, and I have asked you over the years a couple of times. I want to read the story that covers the first few years of Nova after she joined the military.
Okay.
Because she didn't grow up on Luna. She immigrated, and it was only by happenstance that they even allowed her in. So watching her...
Well, she joined the Marines.
Yeah, she was at the gate at the Marines with a bunch of hoodlums.
Wait, no, wait a minute. You're thinking back to Bartley? No, Nova Sakura. Okay, she came to Luna with her parents, and they.
Well, who am I thinking of then that was at the gates with? And she said that she wanted to.
You're thinking of the original Rock Bartley.
Okay, that's the story. I want.
Bartley, the roving biker, right? And she got into the military. She wound up. Well, of course, now we're talking generations back. That was in
that was like in
way
book
back
2.
in the early book 2 and book 2 or 3, Valkyrie's daughter, because she served with the Marines originally. Yeah, because book 3 she was already up there in the officer ranks.
But
right?
there's a big gap from when she joined to when she comes back. Gets to the officer's rank that we've never explored, and she's such an interesting character.
Yeah, well, the gap is between Someday the Stars and Valkyrie's daughter, which there is a big time gap there, because Someday the Stars ends with an epilogue that has jumped forward about 10 years, where Carla Greenwood is now a teenager. And then when we get to book 3, she's in her 20s already, and she's a scientist. So all of that, and then we suddenly meet Bartley again, and Bartley is now a lieutenant colonel, I believe, at that point. And and she was like a master sergeant at the end of
But it'd be fun watching. It'd be fun reading the story of the Lunar Free State military knocking the rough edges off of her, helping her get an education, etc.
Well, there are a lot of stories there in that particular time period, around the first 3 books, into the 4th book. And then the timeline gets a lot tighter.
Yeah, and if you decide to let other people play in your universe, there's nothing wrong with taking a named kind of significant character and bequeathing it to somebody. And Casey Azale, with her military background, would be a great person to tell that story.
Yeah, I'm with Casey on the she's often on the writers group, the Peacemaker Cantina that we do on Saturday nights, and I was just talking to her the other day, and yeah, she's definitely high on the list.
Yeah, tell her Randy recommended her.
I will certainly do that. Another one I would love to see right in the universe is Melissa Olthoff.
Yeah, she would do a great kitty featured book, I think.
Well, after the job that she and Nick Steverson did with the salvage, the weasels, yeah, they were that. I just couldn't stop laughing that whole series. I mean, just amazing humor in there too.
It was like reading a Looney Tunes cartoon.
Right. Well, the other thing is the characters were such caricatures of people of today. Like, thank you for calling Galactic Solutions. I'm your support representative, right?
When are you planning on starting whatever the next chapter of the Lunar Free State is going to be?
Already started. I've only put down a few, like maybe the first chapter so far, and I'm just making some notes on plot points. I am not a plotter.
You're a pantser.
I'm a pantser. That's correct. I keep telling people, when I start writing a novel, I do not know how it's going to end.
You let the characters tell the story.
I let the characters tell me where they want to be, right, and which way they want to go. But in the back of my head, there's always, what is the major conflict? What is it that we're going where? Because there has to be something, and that's the thing about this so-called end of this trilogy here. We've in the 12 novels so far, we've talked about they've met aliens, they've defeated aliens in wars, they've encountered other human races on planets, and they've gone through all of this, and they've expanded, and they're building a colony. But the major conflict all along has not been any of those things. The major conflict has always been, since book 1, between Luna and Earth.
Yeah, Earth's jealousy of the fact that they broke off and did better than they were doing.
And this is what is resolved in book 12 to a large extent. There's always going to be some of that in the background. The CNE is not going to go away completely. And it's going to be there, and it's always going to be striving to outdo the Moonies. But now we have this other group in there, the consortium, and now the Moonies have got to say, maybe we need to watch out for these guys because they're coming up. And that, by the way, the whole bringing in of the consortium was a result of one fan just asking me about 3 or 4 books back, whatever happened to the Americans? Gee, I mean, and I said, yeah, the Americans, and there's a bunch of other people that aren't members of the CNE that probably I've been neglecting them, and how can you neglect half the people on Earth, right?
Yep. Well, I really appreciated how elegantly you formed the consortium, and I loved the fact that the Queen of England kind of took back power and became a mover and a shaker in the creation.
Well, I said, hey, if David Weber could do that with in Manticore, bring back the golden age of British royalty, which is effectively what he did. Weber frankly admits that Honor Harrington is Horatio Hornblower
in female form.
Yeah. Yes, move forward a few centuries, right? But and I have always said there's nothing wrong with an enlightened monarchy as a form of government, provided the monarch really and truly is concerned with the welfare of his or her people.
Mm-hmm. The problem is most families that have lots of money or lots of power, they're usually good for 2, maybe 3 generations, and then they have a nitwit.
Well, and this is something that again, we discussed with the Lunar Free State. Conversation, as I recall, between Robert O'Hara and Jennifer Tanaka a few books back. She's like, we're one heartbeat away from being totally losing the Lunar Free State as the nation that we love, right? And turns out she wasn't wrong.
Yeah, the ousting of the elder O'Hara, and then the bureaucrats putting in who they wanted. That was a great couple of books. Showing that you can't govern by committee.
Yeah, and you effectively. You had a nation that was already heavily socialist because the government had to provide so many services just to keep people alive on the moon, right? And then you suddenly have the bureaucracy take over. And, hey, there you go. But this is... And we're talking to people who haven't yet read Shadow on the Moon, and therefore we'll have to wait and find out of what happens.
Absolutely. We don't want to spoil it. John, are you active on social media? Can people, is there a place they can go to keep up with when Chapter 2 of the Lunar Free State saga starts? How do they find out what's going on?
Well, I am on Facebook. Actually, I have 3 separate pages on Facebook. I have my personal page, John Siers. I have John E. Siers, the author. And then I also have a Lunar Free State page. And, and I try to post everything on all 3 pages so that people can find out what's going on anyway. I'm also on Patreon, and I'm on BookBub as John E. Siers, the author. The other thing is I have, of course, my own personal website, which is www.lunarfreestate.com. And I'm staying on brand. Well, if you look at the latest novels that have come out, it says book something of the Lunar Free State, and there's that funny little R after Lunar Free State because it is now a registered trademark of John E. Siers. So anyway, there's that, and I'm about to start something new with my own website. I believe I'm going to hook up to an e-commerce page on Square that will let me sell the books, signed copies of the print books. Obviously, we have the Amazon exclusive on the ebooks, And but we have gone wide, by the way, on the audio, so that you can get it not only at Audible but also at Chirp, Spotify, and Kobo. And and that has done well for us. A lot of people get audiobooks from Chirp, and Chirp is connected with BookBub. So
I want to say to the listeners, these books lend themselves to the audio format. So if you're doing a lot of driving, if you're looking for something to listen to as you go on vacation, or you're a truck driver, these books are fabulous to listen to because they're written. John writes in such a way that he paints a movie in your head while you read them. And so I strongly recommend the audiobooks.
Well, and I also have to give credit to Jimmy Moreland, my narrator for 12 novels now. And I kind of did one thing wrong in that I went and did something silly. I said, I'm going to write a first-person YA novel in the Lunar Free State that's in the Lunar Free State but not part of the mainstream series. And so I went and wrote Aphrodite of Luna. And
well, I wouldn't say that was silly. I really enjoyed that book.
Well, what was silly about it was that I decided to make a first-person story, and I made the protagonist a teenage girl. And then I said, now what am I going to do about the audio? Because, Jimmy Moreland is great.
But he's not a teenage girl.
He's not a teenage girl, and it's a first-person story, so the story is told by the character, right? So I went out and found a lady who's actually the wife of another author, and she's goes by the voice actor name of Anna Delphine, and she did Aphrodite of Luna for me, and I think she did a great job of capturing the snarky teenage girl. So that one is also out there.
So is there anything else you want to tell the listeners? Any final words of wisdom?
Well, no, just mainly that the Lunar Free State will continue. One way or the other, we're going to get more of it out there for everybody. And I have a project that's been slowly moving its way along, which is a short story collection. All of the stories are mine. I'm writing all of them. So it's a collection, not an anthology. And it's going to be entitled The Seven Sisters, which is going to be about the main characters being the battlecruiser AIs.
So one short story for each of the AIs.
For each of those AIs. I've put the first of those stories out there on Patreon already for people to read. It's called No Algorithm for Love, and it features Sonia, the AI of LFS Sorceress. So there you go.
Well, we need to let you go so that you can continue to write, because I don't want to wait till 2026 to get my Lunar Free State fix. And
now we're going to try and get another one out before 2025 is over. So,
well, I will certainly look forward to it. Thank you for your time, and I hope we can do this again when the first new book of Chapter 2 of the Lunar Free State saga comes out.
I hope so too.
Thank you so much, John.
You've been listening to the CKP Future Books podcast with host Randall Willis. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider leaving it a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you subscribe. Show likes and channel subscriptions are also much appreciated on the CKP YouTube channel. Finally, if you'd like to know more about this author or others on the CKP roster, visit chriskennedypublishing.com. Thanks for listening to the CKP Future Books podcast. We'll see you next time.